Bartholomew Town is brought to you in part by the University of Rhode Island Online, Navigant Credit Union, the Audubon Society of Rhode Island, Newport Film, and Half Street Group.
Bartholomew Town.
Are you looking to advance in your career or explore a new field? The University of Rhode Island now offers a comprehensive portfolio of fully online programs designed to bring world-class education to you anytime, anywhere. Choose from a wide range of flexible, asynchronous programs in business and leadership, data, tech and STEM, healthcare and pharmacy, marine and environmental science, and more. With expert faculty and innovative courses, you'll gain the skills and knowledge to thrive in today's competitive world. Are you ready to take the next step? Visit uri.edu/online and discover how URI Online can help you achieve your goals. URI Online, learn anywhere with us. Senator Whitehouse, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you, Bill. Good to be with you.
We're entering into a moment here that is, it feels like it's a tsunami of Republican domination in Washington, but also in the cultural space. At least there's this notion that there was a broad mandate, which there mathematically and practically wasn't. But
correct.
Culturally, it seems like there's an appetite for people to say, well, Trump won. Capitol Hill is what it is. The Supreme Court is what it is. And we saw gains, Republican gains in places, even here in Rhode Island, like Woonsocket, where, hey, the country wants to move in this direction. Your response?
Well, I think, I guess I have two thoughts on that. One is that for a long time, kind of bubbling in America, have been a considerable number of real freak ideas, conspiracy theories, wacky stuff. And Trump bought into a lot of that stuff and echoed it. So now people who have felt forever that they were at the fringe, that they weren't respected, that they were kind of not part of the legitimate society, which as to those freak and conspiracy theory ideas was actually the right thing. But now they've been legitimated. And so I think they feel a great sense of like release and power and now we're going to prove that climate change was caused by Jewish space lasers. So, I think there's a lot of that that's bubbling, and there's a collapse of a lot of traditional, logical, scientific, fact-based reasoning. I also think that people were worried, and frankly, there was a lot to be worried and angry about. And I don't think for a minute that President Biden ever channeled the kind of willingness to fight that people were looking for. I think basically you had to go through three gates. One, is the guy a fighter? Trump would fight with a fire hydrant. He checks that box with a Sharpie. Two, is he going to fight for me? And three, okay, he says he's going to fight for me. I think he's going to fight for me. What are the policy goals that he's going to pursue that prove that vindicate that? I don't think Joe Biden got through the first gate.
Which is maybe opposed to the vision or the personality that you think about Scranton Joe, and
there was officer friendly.
A dogged nature to Biden's entire career, even personal perseverance that was reflected in his political identity, obviously his personal life. But it's interesting, and I think it's really essential that you break that down into those two categories, because the MAGA coalition, the new GOP, even those people who wouldn't necessarily want to admit that they're a part of that coalition, but they voted that way, maybe they believe that way, it is at two levels. It's somehow or another we got from websites like InfoWars ideas that were, at that point in time, really just nonsense entertainment media and entertainment with an asterisk.
Frankly, have been found to be in court. And now they're bust because of the enormous damages verdict that the creep behind that operation has to pay for lying to the parents about the murders of their children at a elementary school in Connecticut. I mean, it's pretty horrifying stuff.
Yeah, to have that elevated into any kind of mainstream tolerable position it's not necessarily shocking given the climate that we're in, but it's indicative. But also,
and we're going to see that war play out within the Republican Party and within the Trump administration in the years ahead. You know, you've got people like the incoming Secretary of Transportation, the nominee Sean Duffy, the incoming Secretary of State, the nominee Marco Rubio. They are sensible, ordinary, legitimate people with Republican conservative views, but nothing more than that. And then you've got people who are really fringe, like Tulsi Gabbard, who was a spout for Putin propaganda, who was a spout for Assad, the mass murderer propaganda, and how that all comes together under the Trump umbrella is a big unknown.
And also, of course, on the other side of that equation, or in tandem, actually, is the notion of populism, which reflects in the average everyday person saying, hey, wait a minute, I need someone to be a fighter, and I need someone who can be a fighter for me. And regardless maybe of any negative characteristics of this person, guess what? I'm hurting. I remember speaking with you, I think it was the day after the election, and you said we as in Democrats spent too much time patting people on the head talking about how great the CHIPS Act was. The CHIPS Act's great, and it's actually policy that stimulates real native economic development and into the future. At the same time, Joe and Mary Public in Flint, Michigan, do they care about the CHIPS Act? Or do they care? They don't.
It doesn't help with Gate 1. Are you a fighter? Doesn't help with Gate 2. Who are you going to fight for? And it's deep down in the list of what actually matters to people, even at Gate 3, which is what are the policies. So putting a lot of time on that, I thought was it was self-congratulatory because we had done it, but that didn't mean it mattered to voters. And I think the other point that I'd want to make about this populism is that it really remains to be seen whether it's real or not. There's a terrific cartoon of the guy with the headdress and the bare chest and a couple of other people with MAGA hats on standing outside of Mar-a-Lago saying, we really put it to those elites. And on the other side of the wall are helicopters all over the lawn from big oil, big pharma, big crypto, big everything else. And I think there's a very strong case to be made. In fact, it's the case that I believe that the populism effort that they put out was a complete show run by creepy billionaires who have spent huge amounts of money running, Fox News and the Coke industry's massive political apparatus and all of this in order to basically do a big con job on Americans to think that this was going to be their populist moment. We will see, but I really doubt it. I think the average American should grab their wallet and hold on tight that this is going to be a feast for a bunch of people who want to loot the government and pollute our country.
Yeah, it's the ultimate canard, the idea that, hey, everything that's hurting you right now, we're here to save you, and we're gonna actually find a pathway for you to advance not only economically, but in terms of just your belief in the system, when in reality, it seems like we're heading in a direction. I mean, just take a look at the shadow president, Elon Musk, and you say, well, wait a minute, that guy has virtually nothing to do with me other than that we're both human beings in terms of worldview. It's a complete joke to say that unit, that group, that faction, that peer group, whatever you want to call it, has the best interests of the average everyday person. Anybody, frankly, that's in the middle class, upper middle class, they have no connection to these people.
Yeah. There was often a feeling about the Kennedys that was articulated a lot. They're so rich that they don't want to steal. You can trust them. Mm-hmm. I'm afraid that we're going to be disabused of that notion. I don't think there's such a thing as too rich to want to loot the government. Right now, you've got these billionaires, Ramaswamy and Musk, basically having like toddler romper room playing at government with their little doggy thing. And real people's real lives are at stake if they can convince Trump to pursue cuts to Social Security, cuts to Medicare, cuts to Medicaid, cuts to veterans benefits. And the idea that either of them have the faintest clue about what an ordinary Rhode Islander, for instance, cares about couldn't be farther from the truth.
Right. There's also this renewed, there was this whole America First agenda. Well, we're just going to take care of ourselves and we're just going to become more isolationist. And yet at the same time, we saw this press conference earlier this week, which was both bizarre and terrifying, where Trump literally lays out the exact opposite, where he has an imperialist agenda in places like Greenland and now the Panama Canal, Canada. It seems like these are strategic maneuvers. They're going to make the argument, well, it's from a security standpoint. That may very well be true in some theoretical sense. There's also the notion that, hey, they know climate change is real. When the ice caps melt in Greenland, it's going to expose a tremendous volume of oil opportunity and mineral opportunity. Gold may be there. So there's all kinds of ways to look at it.
Or they just want to dazzle people with interesting and semi-nutty ideas while they're busy picking their pockets with the other hand.
Right.
And particularly through this period while some of their most bizarre cabinet nominees are coming up for hearings.
Right.
Change the subject.
Absolutely. And then we're talking about it for a week or two. And
here we are talking about it right now.
Exactly. Still nearly a week later. The cabinet nominees are, it's enough to make you want to just, I thought, should I move to South America and open up a vegan juice shop or something, or become a farmer in Hawaii or whatever? Because you look at it and you go, well, what's the point anymore? Pete Hegseth? Come on.
Yeah. There's some really, really, really troubled ones. And it's going to be interesting to see how they come through the process. I think, Matt Gaetz was a particularly preposterous choice for Attorney General. The Attorney General is the top law enforcement officer in the country. This guy's only exposure to criminal investigations was to be the subject of them. It's unbelievable. And he blew up because of a lot of Republican quiet back pressure back into the White House in the transition, saying, hey, don't make us do this. Yeah. I think Tulsi Gabbard is seeing a lot of that back pressure. I think RFK Jr. is seeing a lot of that back pressure. I think Kash Patel is going to see a lot of that back pressure. He hasn't really been in the spotlight much yet. But a guy who comes to be the director of the FBI with an announced enemies list and a stated desire to prosecute journalists who write bad stories, and a desire to undo the national security operation of the FBI, its whole counterterrorism thing. That's a guy who you'd laugh out of most interviews.
Yeah.
And yet, there he is.
It's wild. And kind of just lastly on that thought, you wonder as well, again, it's difficult to do so. I have an interesting vantage point on this on a local level, being on WPRO in the afternoons, where you get the people to call up and they espouse the, I don't know, there's bases on the moon or whatever it is that seeded us here 1,000 years ago, and history is completely artificial, and there's that level. But there's also, hey, it's John from Coventry who calls up and says, no, you don't understand. These people are exactly what we need, because it's everything that is in your mind bad about them is what's great about them, because they're outsiders and they're fearless. And the media is damaging this country. So we need an enemies list of reporters from the Washington Post that write stories that have even just a negative line about the Trump administration. What do you say to those people out there, those Rhode Islanders right now, that think that this is an amazing thing that's happening?
Well, I think
Bartholomew Town.
Birds are disappearing from our landscape at a rapid pace. Over 1/3 of those breeding on Audubon Society of Rhode Island's wildlife refuges are in decline. Climate change has taken a toll on their migration, nesting, and food sources. While science is highlighting the problem, Audubon is working on real solutions with a plan to rapidly reduce their carbon emissions. The organization will be free of fossil fuels by 2030, with renewable energy powering Audubon's buildings, equipment, and vehicles. To shape our future, all of us must act. Learn more about repowering Audubon, their avian research, and how you can join their fight for climate resiliency. Visit asri.org/repower. Newport Film screens the latest, critically acclaimed documentary films year-round across Rhode Island. Like a film festival, Newport Film often gets early access to films before they're available online or in the theaters. Stay up to date on their latest screening events at newportfilm.com or on Instagram @NewportFilm. Are you looking to advance in your career or explore a new field? The University of Rhode Island now offers a comprehensive portfolio of fully online programs designed to bring world-class education to you anytime, anywhere. Choose from a wide range of flexible, asynchronous programs in business and leadership, data, tech, and STEM, healthcare and pharmacy, marine and environmental science, and more. With expert faculty and innovative courses, you'll gain the skills and knowledge to thrive in today's competitive world. Are you ready to take the next step? Visit uri.edu/online and discover how URI Online can help you achieve your goals. URI Online, learn anywhere with us. Half Street Group brings a new generation's perspective to leadership communication, strategic public relations, and digital marketing. Half Street helps organizations and leaders take control of their own stories and manage their reputations. They get results for their clients by focusing on audience message and culture and by leveraging their decade-long relationship with media and opinion leaders in the Ocean State and throughout New England. Join me and Half Street Group founder and president Mike Rea for a conversation every month about news of the day, the hottest media analysis, and a look behind the scenes at how impactful leaders drive conversations. Learn more at halfstreetgroup.com. As Rhode Island's first ever member-owned credit union, Navigant Credit Union has been a staple in the local business community for more than 108 years. Today, Navigant is a $3.4 billion institution serving more than 136,000 members across 25 physical branch locations. But since its founding in 1915, the mission has never changed. Navigant Credit Union's team of financial professionals have remained committed to improving the financial well-being of the families, businesses, and communities they serve across Rhode Island. Learn more at navigantcu.org.
There is a very reasonable case to be made that there does need to be some shaking up of government. I constantly raged at the slow pace and indolent purposes and nature of the way the Biden administration operated. If I heard one more interagency process discussion, my head was going to explode. They couldn't make a decision. Everything got dumped into our agency process. And a year went by, 2 years went by. Things that were really important just got into the, mire of government process, and nobody would take responsibility because it was all being decided by some interagency process that had no face to it, no name to it, no endpoint to it, and no responsible person involved. So I think there's a lot to be frustrated about. The danger here is that they're not coming in to try to disrupt government to make it fairer and more efficient and more responsive. They're doing it to get it out of the way of the polluters who like a pollute-for-free business model. They're doing it to get it out of the way of the investment bankers who want to loot companies and get away with it and not have the SEC looking over their shoulders. They're doing it for the worst of reasons, to basically make good on the big industries that funded the Trump campaign in the first place. That's what people have to look out for. So you want to cheer some disruption in government and some desire for more efficiency and accountability? Great. I'm with you all day. But make damn sure that's what it is.
That's such a great point. Even localizing that here, there was a pop-up homeless shelter at Providence City Hall that took place. A couple of city councilors organized it a couple of nights ago when it was 14 degrees out, and And the mayor was opposed to it because, one, he said it was sort of a disrespectful to the industrial piece of solving or helping the homeless. And he also said, look, it's unsustainable. All of that is, well, the latter part is definitely true. It's not sustainable. Yet that was disruption that all of a sudden the next day people came to the table. Now you have a pop-up homeless shelter at the Da Vinci Center in Providence where the city is supporting it. And you've got members of the Smiley administration on site. You've got the apparatus came together to say, we can't wait anymore. It's 16 degrees outside. People are outside. Sometimes disruption is a beautiful thing because you have to push it to get what you want. And now the mayor's on board with this, and everybody's kind of come together in a day.
Yeah,
that
correct.
seems like real disruption.
I repeatedly had to put holds as a Democratic senator on Biden administration officials in order to get the attention of the ginormous bureaucracies that wouldn't answer really simple questions. So I get it. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of merit to trying to shake things up and make decisions much more rapid, much more accountable. But just watch out for like who's behind the curtain.
Mm-hmm. What can you do about it as a leading Democrat in terms of oversight without turning your entire life politically and maybe even social or even spiritually as you lay in bed at night into anti-Trump? How can you balance oversight with service?
And it's not anti-Trump. I mean, Trump signed my oceans plastics legislation.
Sure.
And the Trump administration was better for me on highway grants than the Obama administration had been. And so it's not that. It's really anti-corruption. And the problem is that a lot of people have come in with Trump who think that they've now earned the prize of getting to make government decisions come out their way, irrespective of the facts or the merits. And Trump has a weakness for that himself. I mean, he's exhibited a good deal of personal corruption. He's about to be sentenced for a fraud crime himself. So the danger of corruption is a very, very real one, and being on the watch for that is important. I think sometimes the corruption is like little stuff that gets into the public imagination. Like we blew up Scott Pruitt, the EPA administrator, because he was spending his time driving around trying to get like mattresses and hotel lotions and things for, those were little things
right.
that didn't affect people's lives, but they're so annoying and appalling and stupid that they actually blew up under him. You've got that, and then you've got the really, really big ones, like the general corruption of the Republican Party about climate change.
Yep.
And they just can't face the fact that we're changing the world. We just broke 1.5 degrees. Florida is practically uninsurable right now. California is about to be uninsurable. When you're uninsurable, you're also unmortgageable on a property. That means your property values crash. And in my budget committee, we put in a lot of work to walk through how an economic crash follows from unpredictable climate risk right through to like a 2008 economy-wide meltdown, and that's enormous. And so where between Scott Pruitt's lotion and a nationwide economic collapse provoked by climate risk and uncertainty, where you put your attention is going to be the key. You got to have focus, and that's what's going to we're going to have to focus on as Democrats. Where's the focus? Where's the corruption? How do we stop it? How do we make sure the American people see it?
A lot of Rhode Islanders are concerned about, they're concerned about a lot of issues, but broadly speaking, the Washington Bridge, and I think we can even extrapolate that out further to just generally funding for infrastructure and retribution from a Trump administration or from a Trump-influenced Congress to blue states such as Rhode Island. The Washington Bridge itself is a perfect example of where there's going to have to be federal funding. I mean, there's no way. I mean,
we've got something like $220 million already salted away for that project from the Biden administration.
Yes.
So we are hugely net positive in the bank account for that, thanks to federal funding. And so we're in a pretty good place right now. And, the Trump administration could be very vindictive and very retributive and come after Rhode Island. But I'm the chairman of the Environment and Public Works Committee. I'm sorry, the ranking member in my dream, chairman.
Yes.
Ranking member. And that's where all the highway bills and all the big water resources bills go. That's where infrastructure gets done. Mm-hmm. Jack is the ranking member on the Defense Committee, where all the military decisions get approved. So, there's a point where if they really want to do that, do they really want to pick a fight with us? Yeah. Plus, we had the track record we have with the first Trump administration is good. I got a lot of stuff through Secretary Chow in the first Trump administration. Sean Duffy, the guy who's coming in, seems like a good guy. Tammy Baldwin sits next to me on the Senate floor, and I've asked her about Duffy. She says, good guy, straight shooter. I expect I'll be voting for him. And in an environment like that, why would he want to get himself and his agency in trouble by breaking the rules, playing favorites, adding corruption to the mix?
Mm-hmm. It makes sense.
So there's a lot of tradition about just trying to play these big grant programs fair and square. And I give Secretary Chow credit for doing it. She was very good to work with, and I expect the same of Secretary Duffy.
Blue economy-wise, as Rhode Island continues to pivot towards what could be the Rotterdam of the Western Hemisphere, and or I should say the Rotterdam of North America, we've already got a real stake in the blue economy.
Yeah.
And it's much more than offshore wind. It certainly is much more than defense. It's Smart Bay. There's so many aspects to it, and there's a lot of jobs. There's a lot of good job potential. There's also a lot of automation that could happen in this space, but how is that different than anywhere else? Your take on growing the blue economy in Rhode Island, really the green economy as well, and can we be defined in, I hate to say it, sorry to Delaware, but as they're the LLC capital of America, it's a little bit more exciting to be the blue economy capital of America. Will people look at Rhode Island and think blue economy at some point in the next 10 years? Is that possible?
I hope so. We've been working on this for a long time, and I repeatedly put into the Biden Commerce Department for funding to help develop the blue economy structure and infrastructure that we need. Unfortunately, despite the secretary being a former governor, without much success. So that was unfortunate. But nevertheless, a lot of good work has been done even without the big federal grants that we were looking for. And it's going to continue to go that way. You've got the Naval Station, Newport. You've got Newark, the Undersea Warfare Center. You've got the new boats, both NOAA and Coast Guard, coming into Naval Station, Newport. You've got the GSO program at URI. You've got an enormous aquaculture industry that is doing very well and providing, clams and oysters well outside of Rhode Island. You've got an enormous summer tourist, ocean sailing, beaches economy. And the thing that it's not government's job to tell each of those industries how to work, but what we can do helpfully is to try to make sure that they're pulling together and the things that are a common need are identified quickly so we can do them so that they get done. And that's where I think paying so much attention to make sure that the water is clean, making sure that the sea level isn't washing our beaches away, things like that really come to the fore. And it's a policy development piece to make sure that all of those very disparate industries have a better path to grow and to shine because we've removed obstacles.
Looking at one of the scuzziest organizations that you might be able to find anywhere, Prospect Medical Holdings. You've done some good work on this. What's the update now? We got a statement from the Attorney General yesterday that there's a lot of eyes on Prospect, and it feeds into a broader conversation about healthcare, which is in a somewhat disastrous state I think at this point in time. But specifically with Prospect, what's been your work on this?
Well, the timing is interesting. I get along quite well with Chuck Grassley. He was my ranking member on the Budget Committee. And together we did a report on how private equity works in healthcare, for instance, when they buy hospitals. And we specifically took a look at the private equity people who invested in Prospect, who invested in our hospitals here. So it was very close to home. And the problem is that private equity has a business model with investors who come in, lock in for a period, want returns during that period. This is not, as Warren Buffett would say, an investment forever. They want to, at best, I think they call it fix and flip the company. At worst, strip and flip the company. And the concern is when you've got a hospital that may not have taken on a lot of debt, it's kind of a ripe target for private equity people to come in, load it up with debt, take that cash from the borrowing, dividend it back to themselves, and then clear out, having made their money, and leave the hospital floundering with this enormous debt that they're not responsible for because it's the hospital. They're gone. They've taken their dividends and they've fled. And the private equity company pushed back on the report and said, no, none of that is true. We really did a good job. Prospect is in fine shape. And now it looks like they've announced that they're looking at a bankruptcy filing.
Yeah, which may be a logical conclusion through all of this.
The good news for Rhode Islanders, and I want to give Attorney General Noronha credit in this space because he's been on their case, is that it looks like the conversion to new ownership is underway and was happening ahead of this and will continue. And that means that people who have contracts with the hospitals and so forth, everybody should stay calm and not flee the hospitals. But it also means that as we think about our hospitals and our healthcare, and we see private equity people coming at it, again, it's a little bit like looking out for corruption in the Trump administration. Look out for self-dealing and looting and stripping when you see private equity people coming into healthcare.
Zooming back out here in the last couple of minutes, just, there's so much to break down when we talk about on an international level, when we talk about what's happening in the Middle East, when we talk about Israel, Gaza, when we talk about October 7th, when we talk about the ensuing catastrophe that we've seen play out.
Yeah.
The simple question, or the simplest question right now, is what do you want to see happen here to forward?
To me, the centerpiece is continuing to support Ukraine. I think Putin is extremely dangerous. He has extremely dangerous ambitions, and he's created an extremely dangerous new axis of evil with North Korea and their lunatic dictator, to some degree with China, although China's keeping him at arm's length in a lot of respects, with Iran, real troublemakers, and Ukraine was basically the Putin experiment in whether he got to rebuild Imperial Russia and could engage in genocide and massacre and bombing children's hospitals in order to accomplish all of that. If we allow that to happen, the problem doesn't end within the sovereign borders of Ukraine. That problem then echoes all the way to Taiwan, which China is looking at. It echoes through the Baltic states, where they'd be next on the list for Putin. It echoes through the sense in markets that we are living in a safe and reliable planet in which it makes sense to invest, and we're not, allowing really dangerous, corrupt dictators to drive policy and governance around the world. So, to me, if we can really push Putin back and defeat Russia's ambitions in Ukraine, that is the biggest thing, because all of the consequences that follow from failing, I think, are so dangerous.
On a surgical level, though, do you think that there's an opportunity for detente, to use a word directly from the Cold War, between, or not even between, within the Israel-Gaza crisis right now?
Yeah, I do.
Do you see that there's a real hope that, hey, this can be stopped and there can be significant aid and a reimagining
Yes.
of how to move forward.
There is, and I think, I give President Biden and Secretary of State Blinken good marks for really, really trying hard to get that landed. There was the framework of a peace agreement among the various Sunni Arab countries around Israel that would bring enormous resources into Gaza and also some honest governance into Gaza so that it wasn't being run by the Hamas terrorists. And you could see a whole new world after that in which Gaza has resources and a future and good prospects for the Palestinians there. Israel has safety and security on its borders. The Jordanians and Qataris and Emirates and Saudis all have come together in a general peace agreement that isolates Iran and puts them on their heels so that they have to rethink the policy they've had of trying to manipulate and propel terrorism around the area. So I think we are close, and I think the framework remains. And the big question right now is, can Trump close the deal? And will Netanyahu be willing to close the deal, looking over his shoulder at, once they're no longer a wartime country, he's no longer a wartime prime minister, and the looming criminal charges against him and his spouse suddenly come back to the fore again. So he's had terrible motives throughout all of this and has been, I think, in many respects, the reason that Biden and Blinken failed at getting this very real prospect of a peace framework to come to pass.
Lastly, taking a look at the climate change situation and not even speaking inside of government, it finally feels a little bit like winter in the last couple of weeks here. But I mean, how does this issue advance in the general public's consciousness? Because it seems like people are dug in and they say they're fully aware climate change is real. They're fully aware that there's an infrastructure need that has to be met from a defensive standpoint, and that there's a forward-looking change in the way we go about living and inhabiting our island home here that has to happen. And then there's people who literally say either it's fake or, well, it doesn't matter. This is nothing new, of course, but it just seems like we're at a moment where it's become a political issue when in reality this is an issue about the survival of the species. How's the narrative change given that you're on the forefront of this conversation?
This began as a science conversation, and God bless them, the scientists got it right. Everybody from academic scientists to national scientists at places like NASA to Exxon scientists. They got it right. And then we in politics had the job of taking their warnings and heading off the bad consequences. And we catastrophically failed entirely because of political influence, I would say outright corruption driven by the fossil fuel industry, particularly after Citizens United, when it could flood unlimited amounts of money secretly into politics, which they did. So we're now through that political phase of failure, and now it's the time of consequences, and the consequences are coming home to roost. And the place where the consequences hit first is in property insurance. Mm-hmm. Because a property insurer has to look forward. They can't buy into fossil fuel lies. They have to look at real risks. They've got fiduciary obligations to be truthful, to get it right, to be accurate. And so they're looking forward at these new risks of sea level rise and worse storms coming off the heated Gulf against Florida, for instance. And they're looking at these new wildfire risks that they have exploded. I mean, the risk profile is just astonishing out west, particularly. And so in both cases, what you have is a situation in which the insurance industry really doesn't know how to price insurance. And the big companies are withdrawing. Little pop-ups are showing up. They're not that reliable. There's a state fund behind them, not that reliable, easy to be overwhelmed. And the cascade that not a greenie, not an environmentalist, but the chief economist for the mortgage company, Freddie Mac, has posited is this. You can't predict what's going to happen to risk because of climate. So you can't issue an insurance policy on a property. So that property now can't get a mortgage. So now the owner can't find a buyer when it's time to sell unless it's a billionaire who'll pay cash.
Yep.
And then you have a property values crash. That was the phrase the Freddie Mac chief economist used. A coastal property values crash that would be as bad as the 2008 mortgage meltdown cascading out into the general economy.
Yeah.
Now, we got the evil sibling of the coastal property insurance problem in the wildfire property insurance problem. Both of them are now real, and I think we're headed into some very challenging economic times as that cascade plays out.
Yeah.
In 2008, things got better because the properties that had bad mortgages were so-called underwater, the technical financial term, but they weren't literally underwater. You know, when it's sea level rise, that doesn't get better. And so it's a much more dangerous situation than 2008 because it's not an economic glitch. It's not a financial system glitch. It's actually a decline in the livability of specific areas where people want to live and want to have insurance policies and want to have mortgages and ultimately want to sell their homes to somebody.
Yeah. Well, that makes it real for a whole different group of people that I think that, like you said, aren't necessarily self-identified environmentalists, conservationists. That impacts millions and millions of Americans.
Florida insurance market is a mess right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's I was just in South America in a couple of months ago, and with the wildfires, the rate of wildfire there is so significant. The smoke, as I was in Brazil, was so overwhelming, so devastating that even people who I know to be Bolsonaro supporters, conservatives in Brazil, are saying finally, yeah, you know what, it's real and we have to make a difference.
Yeah. We could see it in Rhode Island from those fires in Western Canada.
That's right.
They put so much smoke up that all the way over here in Rhode Island, you could still see it in those summer. I mean, it made for nice summer sunsets, but
yeah,
it's a signal that we need to pay attention to, that things are coming off the rails in terms of the natural systems that support human life here.
Senator Whitehouse, thanks so much for your time and good luck as you enter into Trump 2.0.
Thank you so much, Bill. Good to be with you.
As Rhode Island's first ever member-owned credit union, Navigant Credit Union has been a staple in the local business community for more than 108 years. Today, Navigant is a $3.4 billion institution serving more than 136,000 members across 25 physical branch locations. But since its founding in 1915, the mission has never changed. Navigant Credit Union's team of financial professionals have remained committed to improving the financial well-being of the families, businesses, and communities they serve across Rhode Island. Learn more at navigantcu.org. Half Street Group brings a new generation's perspective to leadership communication, strategic public relations, and digital marketing. Half Street helps organizations and leaders take control of their own stories and manage their reputations. They get results for their clients by focusing on audience, message, and culture, and by leveraging their decade-long relationship with media and opinion leaders in the Ocean State and throughout New England. Join me and Half Street Group founder and president Mike Rea for a conversation every month about news of the day, the hottest media analysis, and a look behind the scenes at how impactful leaders drive conversations. Learn more at halfstreetgroup.com. You can support the independent journalism that happens on Bartholomew Town by visiting patreon.com/BartholomewTown. For as little as $3 per month, you can help sustain this project. Hey, thanks for stopping by Bartholomew Town. For more content, follow me on Instagram at Bill Bartholomew.